So recently, thanks to this nerd at Typecraft, I have decided to forego IntelliJ as my primary IDE, and I'm now just using NeoVim and Tmux. I'm already really familiar with Vim. I've been using Vim for years, but I stopped using it as my daily driver a little while ago. But thanks to Typecraft, I am now using iTerm2 as my sole exclusive place for doing all of my development. So I don't want to spend weeks trying to relearn muscle memory that I've spent years building. I just kind of want to make my keymaps work with NeoVim and Tmux, and I just want it to really feel seamless. So to do that in iTerm, we have profiles. And within profiles, we can have key mappings. And depending on the application being used, these key mappings will be interpreted a certain way. And you can see one of the cool things about iTerm that not a lot of macOS apps let you do is you can actually remap your command bindings, which is cool because terminals can't read command bindings by default. Most terminals will not interpret a macOS command key, or if they do, it might be interpreted as something like Alt, which we'd also like to use. We'd like to be able to use Control, Shift, Alt, and Command. So you spend a lot of time building out these key mappings, and then what happens if you have another computer that you're working on and you want this workspace to essentially carry over to other computers? Well, you're kind of blocked, right? You have to either select one of your profiles and you have to duplicate it, you have to export it as JSON, and then you can import it as JSON into your other iTerm2. This didn't feel like a good solution, so I wanted to come up with a way to back up my key mappings within my dotfiles. And as it turns out, there's a way that you can do that. You can use the dynamic profiles feature in iTerm2, which is a really cool, really easy way to make your profiles portable. However, it does come at the cost of editability, and I'll show you what I mean. So this is what we've been looking at. We've been looking at my dynamic profile, and you can see because it's got the little dynamic label. And I think automatically it will also add this dynamic tag to it as well. Now what you'll notice is if you go to edit any part of it, it says that your changes will be lost. And this is because the profile is exclusively read through the JSON file, which means you cannot edit it within your preferences pane anymore, which can be a bit of a pain in the butt. And let me show you why. This is an example of what the JSON profile might look like. And you can see you've got all of your triggers, you've got your hotkeys. Here's the name of your profile. So if you did want to edit that, you can do all of that stuff here. And it's in this very specific format. And then inside of it, it's got your keyboard map. So as you can tell just by kind of looking at this, the keyboard map is not intuitive at all. It's got named actions which correspond to your different things that you can do. So for example, you've got just a regular send, which just sends text, and that's like action 32 or something like that. Then you've got send hex codes, which is action 11, and then you've got send escape codes, which is action 10. So you can edit this by hand for sure. And that may be the route that I use here for the next little bit because I'm thinking of a way that might make this a little bit easier so that we can edit it within the preferences, but then be able to copy that back to our dynamic profile. But it's a little tricky because if you just export it as JSON, all it gives you is this inner object here. And it also doesn't give you the GUID, which is mandatory so that iTerm can keep your profiles separate even if they're named the same thing. So what we essentially have to do is we have to copy this inner object over. So I'm going to write up a bash script in a few days that maybe just copies the inner object over, or maybe just does a simple diff on your key maps or something like that. So I think in the future I might write a bash script that allows me to duplicate my profile and then see what those diffs are and then just copy those diffs over. That way I can still edit my key map within the UI, which is nice and intuitive, and then it just backs up to my profiles. And then I can still have my dynamic profiles in my Git inside my .files repository, so I can still back it up to other computers and use it pretty seamlessly.